State-centric accounts of Philippine politics tend to explain why it is institutionally weak. The weakness of the state is attributed to its lack of relative autonomy from the dominant sectors of society. From this perspective, the Philippine state is characterized as being captured instead of being autonomously embedded in competing and diverse social interests, since it enjoys little autonomy from dominant social classes, political clans, powerful families, and other entrenched particularistic groups. While the notion of a weak state provided more in-depth insights on the seemingly changeless social, political, and economic problems plaguing the country, it has also raised some interesting questions. If the Philippine state is weak, what would a strong state look like? What segments of society are represented by the current weak state? If a state avoids doing the things which are inimical to the elite, is it necessarily weak? If the goal is to protect the interests of the top 10% or the top 1% of Philippine families, then has the state been quite strong? If a dominant class is strong enough to keep the state weak, why is it not strong enough to take over the state entirely, utilize it against other classes, and in the process turn it into a strong state? Does a strong state mean a weak civil society? Most accounts of Philippine power dynamics tend to focus on political giants constantly engaged in great battles such as election campaigns, government activity, or rebellion. Little or no attention is given to the nameless and oftentimes faceless collective mass of people that comprise Philippine society. More often than not, they are seen as passive followers or terrified victims. The vast, generally unorganized and informal discourse and activity of everyday politics, where the people come to terms with and/or contest norms and rules regarding authority, production, and the allocation of resources, is greatly overlooked. Wataru Kusaka adopts the concept of moral politics, which refers to the creation of groups that are perceived as either good or evil. He distinguishes moral politics from interest politics, which pertains to the distribution of resources. He points to the moralistic discourse of the Filipino urban middle class, who takes pride in their self-identification as upright citizens, democratic defenders, and anti-corruption activists. Kusaka interprets this phenomenon as a primary example of the construction of an antagonistic we-they relations that may be mobilized to advance or obstruct democracy. Moreover, when this we-they is escalated to justify the elimination or destruction of the enemy, it becomes a threat to democracy. But moral politics tends to either blame the victim or glorify the poor. It also ignores the role of institutions in structuring individual and collective interaction. It can also be criticized for emphasizing subjectivism and relativism. Populism, from the Latin word populis, refers to a movement, a regime, a leader, or even a state which claims close affinity with the people. As an ideology, it is misused or abused and sometimes reviled, since it gives expression to the crudest hopes and fears of the masses, and by leaving no scope for deliberation and rational analysis. Populists usually make class appeals and claim to champion the poor, but according to Mueller, it is a degraded form of democracy that promises to make good on democracy's highest ideal: let the people rule. The election of Rodrigo Duterte to the Philippine presidency in 2016 signaled the return of a populist narrative first articulated by Joseph Erap Estrada in 1998. Duterte's unorthodox campaign style has captured the imagination of the Filipino voters. His political backstory runs parallel with the archetypical Filipino populist ousted President Estrada. Their political narrative represent a strain of populism that has emerged as a challenge to the dominant liberal reformist, albeit elitist, post-Marcos regime founded by Corazon Cory Aquino.